Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Legal Geeks. With me, as always, is my partner in geekdom, Josh Gilliland. Hey, Josh, how are you?
Always shoot first, Jessica.
And yes, once again, we are discussing one of our favorite topics, the awesome Star Wars. It is always great. Josh has another fantastic Star Wars shirt on. I love your shirt.
Thank you. I got it from T Fury. It's the combo of the incomplete Death Star with R2-D2, combining the best of the Empire and the Rebellion.
I like it. I like it very much. Today we are going to discuss, we actually, see, one of us should have on a Jabba the Hutt shirt or something, or a Princess Leia shirt. We are actually going to be discussing today Jabba's palace and the legal issues that arose there in Return of the Jedi.
Well, Jessica, I was going to get you the Life Day present of the Slave Leia outfit, so you do have that to look forward to.
Excellent, and I will wear that someday in a very special edition of the Legal Geeks, Josh. It may only be an audio post, but I will wear it.
Awesome.
Anyway, let's jump to the first topic, which is the duty that Jabba owes to employees, independent contractors, and those in servitude, like poor Leia. So let's talk first about, I think you were going to talk about the Palace Guard?
Yeah, so let's break this down, because if the Old Republic had anything similar to U.S. law on employee safety, there was a bunch of OSHA things that they would need to follow. Granted, we are in Tatooine, that was on the outskirts of it. So even in the days of the Old Republic, they weren't really following the law that much to begin with, like such as allowing slavery. So what would a employer owe an employee in Jabba's palace? Well, first off, they would have to make sure that the employees are free from recognized hazards that are causing or more likely to cause death or serious physical harm to the employees. Well, let's take a look at first, the slave girl dancer, Oola, 2 O's, an L, and an A, who, was green and displeased Jabba with her dance, and she fought back, and he dropped her down a trapdoor. The employee safety issue with that, really is irrelevant because, one, she was a slave, and two, that's murder. So not good in any way you cut it. We fast forward a few scenes to the guard who, ends up fighting with Luke, and they both end up falling down the trap door. What about him?
Yeah.
When you start looking at different laws, things, when you have a hole in the floor that somebody could fall through, those are supposed to be covered. So that can create a liability issue there. The guard is also a guard, so that could mean that you end up fighting with people because, you are on Tatooine, outside Mos Eisley, where all the villainous scum hang out. So, there's a good chance you're going to get hurt in a scuffle or something. But does falling down a hole and getting eaten by a Rancor, fall into something that's foreseeable risk that you would assume? And I'm going to go with probably not on being eaten by the Rancor. Getting into a fight with somebody, perhaps even having getting an arm cut off by a lightsaber or something that you could, you assume the risk of. But full on getting eaten by a creature, that's problematic. It also raises interesting issues of what would be premises liability in the event that he did assume the risk of the employment and being eaten by the Rancor. Now, there are cases that come out of the South, like Georgia and Florida, that deal with people having wild animals on their property. Not that they've, entrapped them, but they say they have a lagoon or something, and alligators like hanging out on it, and those alligators occasionally attack and injure people. You can't be liable for like a free wild animal that's just out there. Like, it's the shark situation and trying to sue the city for it. But alligators hang out in your backyard, and the alligator's dangerous, there could be liability there. Well, take the Rancor, which grew up on a different planet, and Jabba had it imported in, and then enclosed in a cage, which he knew was dangerous, and then he would feed it through a trapdoor because he was kind of being a jerk that way. He was a criminal mastermind crime lord, and that's kind of what they do. And so from that level, you could go like, from a premises liability, there could be liability there because he had this inherently dangerous creature that was a wild animal, and its only thoughts were to hunt and eat, and a guard falls in, they're going to get eaten. And, you probably had a duty to that employee to make sure that they are not eaten alive.
Aw, because that was a pretty cute palace guard, I have to say. I was pretty sad when he was eaten.
You know, on the flip side, he was a pig, so, it could have been very bacony.
Aw, he was cute. Aw, he was cute. All right, so let's see. So let's talk about things that obviously outside of the actual palace there. What about Boba Fett?
Well, when they go to the sand dunes to feed Luke, Han, Chewie to the Sarlacc Pit to be digested for 1,000 years, and they're on Jabba's barge, and the two little scout ships that are flying around the barge to execute them, that raises other interesting issues with Boba Fett, who ends up in the fight getting hit by the blinded Han Solo and then flying and landing in the pit. Boba Fett was a bounty hunter, so he was an independent contractor. Now, under most general law, the premises owner, in this case the premise isn't the sand dunes, but the ships that they were on, because there are cases dealing with oil rigs out at sea. And that would, where you have premises liability on the oil rig. Being out in the sand dunes flying around, I think you could have a comparable argument that that barge was a lot like an oil rig, and what are they over? A big pit where they're going to drop people in. So it's very comparable to the oil rig situation. So when you're dealing with the independent contractor situation, and in the oil rig case it was an independent contractor, you start looking at different analysis because the premises owner will not be held liable where an independent contractor has assumed the risk of the danger. Well, Boba Fett was the grown-up clone son of Jango Fett. He was a trained, experienced bounty hunter, very good, did lots of work for Vader. If you played, Force Unleashed 2, you understand that plot line and everything he did there. And so he was good in doing a lot of work for Boba Fett and for Vader and hunting people down. It's what he did. So when he decides to get into a fight with a Jedi and a scruffy nerf herder who's also very good and a big Wookiee, you can't expect things are going to go smoothly at that point. And so he assumed the risk. And when he ended up, falling into the Sarlacc Pit, and when you get into the expanded universe, he does kill the Sarlacc and escape and all that good stuff. But
spoiler alert!
For intents and purposes, there shouldn't be any... Read Wikipedia. You'll see it's all right there. But when you get down to it, he wouldn't be able to go after Jabba's estate for any injuries he sustained because he assumed the risk of getting into that combat, and since he was an independent contractor, Jabba didn't really owe him any type of duty.
All right. And of course, this is all, like you said, kind of, an academic exercise because, number one, I would not want to be the lawyer who actually sues Jabba the Hutt or the government official who goes in and tries to shut down his operations. And I don't think I'd even want to be his actual lawyer because I think coming back to him with any bad news on the legal front would be, a surefire death sentence. So, yes, I don't think anybody's going to sue Jabba or try to mess with Jabba at all, except unless you're Jedi Knight.
Yeah, and you really don't see many lawyers either in any of the prequels or anything else. Now, what would be an interesting legal issue if they actually do push in Episode 7, and JJ, I hope you're listening, would be Rancor's rights. Now, there was a case out of San Diego, California, where a animal rights group sued SeaWorld as next to friend, the next to friend case, trying to liberate the killer whales at SeaWorld. So you got it. In the caption, the killer whales are the named plaintiff in the lawsuit. And the judge went through extensive 13th Amendment analysis for pages. It's brilliant. And it came down to, the 13th Amendment, Civil War Amendment that was to end slavery applied to people. It doesn't apply to non-persons. And so if slavery ends up getting outlawed in the new republic, which you would assume it would be very quickly, you would then have to deal with Rancor's rights. And while the prohibition against slavery might not apply to them on the same logic, the new Senate would be able to enact legislation to guarantee the humane treatment of Rancors so they're not used for entertainment purposes and death matches, that they can live on a planet and just hunt and eat like there's no tomorrow.
Well, look at that. I think we have the plot for the new Star Wars movie. Very cool.
spin-offs. It could be a total spin-off. I mean, do you know what? I'd even settle for a lawyer Christmas special for the new series. So if they want to go that route, we can be available.
Well, I think on that note, we can't top that. So, Josh, thanks so much for this awesome Star Wars piece on Jabba the Hutt.